Here's the next one. We're broke. And excitement to boot.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So you can continue to eat all of that great food, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. We have a lot of folks who might be talking this morning. Welcome to the April District 1 breakfast. So our agenda is a little different today because we want you to hear from folks who are representing you on the various citizen advisory boards. But before we get into that, we want to get started with a presentation with KU. So we have Caitlin from KU to come up and talk about what's going on there.
Hi, good morning. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Like you said, my name is Caitlin, and this is one of my classmates and friends, Kaida. And we're graduate students in the Master of Public Health program from KU Med here in town. So I'm just here to talk to you about the volunteer crosswalk painting program and why it's a unique solution to this historically pervasive public safety concern. First of all, I just want to start off with some interesting statistics and numbers. According to the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Board, 96% of crosswalks within Wichita need to be repainted. In Wichita, about 2,402 people walk to work regularly, and 476 people ride a bike to work regularly. In 2014, in the United States, 4,884 pedestrians, 728 bicyclists were killed in crashes involving motor vehicles. Crashes involving vehicles and pedestrians is the leading cause of unintentional injury-related deaths in the United States. Fear of being struck by a vehicle is a primary barrier to biking to work or walking to work. So when people don't feel safe, they don't want to get out and ride their bike or be out and about in their neighborhood walking to their car.
You can lift the mic all the way off and.
Sorry. There we go. Sorry, guys. Okay. Just a real quick question. Raise your hand if anybody you know anybody that commutes to work or school via walking or biking in this room. You or yourselves, yeah. So.
Commute to work or school via walking or biking, raise your hand.
Or just anywhere, going to the grocery store, anything like that. Okay, yeah. So at the macro level, built environmental factors such as street connectivity, walkability are correlated with physical activity. Less studied but more modifiable micro scale elements of the environment include crosswalks, which may also affect physical activity. And our student organization has started a volunteer crosswalk painting program. This project was kind of started with Dr. Abel, I would say. Yeah, one of our head professors over at KU Med. And we've been working with Erin Terry over at Public Works, and Elizabeth Wilcox has been our intermediary over at KU Med and Public Works. We have a huge spreadsheet that has all the crosswalks within the Wichita area that need to be repainted. And this past week, we actually started painting some crosswalks. Some of our students volunteered. If you look at the flyer that we just handed out, those are some of our students out there that are, oh cool, yeah. Some of our students out there painting the sidewalks. So just the overall learning curve of everything, trying to get this thing started, communicating with everyone within the community and working out all the kinks. We did start getting some crews set up and some time slots set up to go out and do the painting. And from the feedback I got from everybody, it was a really good experience. They felt like the workers that were supervising were very gracious and kind. They didn't feel like you know, they were hovering over them and, you know, micromanaging them or anything like that. So our first goal is just to start hitting the schools and the community crosswalks first. So the volunteers are gathering within groups of 3, but we can't handle any more 3 groups of 3, so about 9 volunteers at a time. The painting takes place Monday through Friday, and the shifts are from 8:30 to 12, 12:30 to 4, or an all-day shift, 8:30 to 4. Volunteers are not required to reside within the neighborhood that they are painting, and there's no prior experience needed. You must be able to work about 3.5 hours at a time, wear appropriate clothing, you know, closed-toed shoes, and that kind of thing. Anything like that? Okay. Bring a sack lunch if you're working a full day. We need to be able to complete and sign a consent. You must be at least 16 years of age, and if you're under the age of 18, you do need to be accompanied by an adult. Today we're asking for some more volunteers and or you know, any feedback on anyone you know who would be interested in any other groups. You know, you have students that are doing community service and need to meet their hours, or you know, any Boy Scouts that are trying to earn their Eagle Scout, that kind of thing. You know, any children or grandchildren that are looking for some volunteer opportunities as well. Taita's going to take over.
Hello, my name's Haida. I have 2 sign-in sheets where you can sign up any school, elementary school, where students are crossing along in the neighborhoods, in community centers or nursing homes. We're just hoping to have a safe environment for children, those who like to walk even around their neighborhood, and just to make the environment just more walkable. Just those who may not feel comfortable now, if it's painted, then there'll be more safety, not reckless driving. And I know back on Tuesday, I was there taking pictures of students. There was a little bit of reckless driving before we had some areas painted. It was right next to school. And during the school day, students like to walk out. They go to the nearby parks. So if there's any areas like that in your neighborhood, especially schools where there's young children who are trying to increase their physical activity but it's not safe, please feel free to sign up the school or community center of your concern. So if there's any questions, feel free to let us know now or afterwards, but we really appreciate the time that was given for us to speak to you all about this cause, and especially this is the end of National Public Health Week. So we just want to make sure that the public, especially in Wichita, is safe, and we're not just inside but outside. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we have our next speaker, I wanted to acknowledge School Board Member Ben Blankley's in the building. Serves on the US 59 School Board. Next we'll have Fire. They are here. You got anything you want to?
It sounds like you guys covered most of it at the library meeting, so that's fine. I'll just follow up a little bit. Oh, that'd be my radio problem, maybe. Turn it off for just a minute. They'll call me again if they need me. Oh, thank you. Good morning, Captain Ryan Gazzari, Firehouse 10, right across the street here. Sounds like you covered most of the district information at the library district meeting here, what was that, Monday?
Yeah.
So, luckily for this district, not a whole lot of fire information to report, very few incidents, one actually, and not directly in this area, it was down on South Washington, I believe, so that's good for March. I'm sure we'll have some more information for April at the next meeting. We're busy, you know, the alarms are down just a little bit, but we're busy, we've got a ton of training going on right now. Recruit class down at the training grounds going on right now, just started a truck company class, so you see fire trucks coming and going and training, that's what we do every day. So you may see some different vehicles in the core of the city. They're gonna do some pilot vehicles, some smaller vehicles that use less fuel, a little bit easier to maneuver. That's something that's gonna be forthcoming from the chief when she decides exactly what direction they wanna go. We've had several promotions and retirements and a couple at the upper management level. We just were assigned a new deputy chief of operations. Chief Sid Newby. There's supposed to be announcement of the Deputy Chief of Support Services next week. And so some of those people at the top are retiring and moving on. I'm sure they'll find something better to do with their time, but, never know, they come back sometimes. Side note, warm weather outside, the kids are out, you guys are talking about that, they're running the streets, you see them, be careful, all hours, it's, 60 degrees at night, so the kids are out even late and running around. Don't run over them, we don't want that. Be careful, the schools are letting out soon, next month, be the end of school, so something to think about there. Also with warmer weather, there's considerations like leaving your pets and kids in cars, Got to reboot your brain every season for the different challenges that we have to face, so be aware of those things. Also, we're in storm season, so prepare yourself, get your case of water, food, whatever you need to do, keep a radio handy. The storms are gonna be coming soon. Take care of yourself, your family, pets, stuff like that. Also, flooding, we've covered this a million times. If we get some heavy rains, don't drive through the water, please.
Turn around, don't drown.
Turn around, don't drown, and yeah, without fail, we see cars floating down the street. Easily avoidable, let's make that happen, so. I don't think I have anything else, if you guys, if you have questions, go ahead.
April burn ban?
Yes, that. Don't burn
Just
stuff.
when I think of burning, I think of firemen. So-
Yes, a lot of that has to do with like range burning and control
Right.
burning and stuff like that. We don't have as much problem within the city, but we are under a burn ban. So, if you have small fires, keep them that way for, cooking or whatever, but outside of that, wait till May, it'll wait, so, thank you
So-
for reminding me.
If I have couple sticks and I can burn those?
If
or
you're cooking
no?
some hot dogs on there, yeah,
Oh,
that's
Cook-
great.
barbecue.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, cooking fires only right now, even, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Chimenea?
Yeah, that. Recreational burning is restricted during the month of April, so.
And it's in the district newsletter.
Yeah, there you go. Follow up with the newsletter thing. Anybody else have questions, concerns, comments?
Great.
Good. All right. I'll turn it over to whoever's next. Thank you very much.
Turn around, don't drown is real. When I had an SUV, I would see people around 17th Street and down off of Murdoch, try to drive through that water and then stop. And I turned around in an SUV and they had a car. So if you see flooding water, turn around, find a different route. It's not worth it. You don't want to sit there. So we'll get into some of our folks representing District 1 on the Citizen Advisory Board. We'll start off with Lamont Anderson, who serves on the library board, so he'll give you an update from the library and also just tell people kind of what you all do.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Pretty good? Good morning, as Councilman Johnson said, my name is Lamont Anderson. I am your representative on the Wichita Public Library Board's Board of Directors. Came to give you all a little update about what we're doing, what's going on, and take any questions or concerns that you would have, particularly about the library system, keying on, more importantly, Maya Angelou, I can take those back to the main board and have that discussion. So to get off into the meat and potatoes of everything, most recently we just completed a workshop. It was a joint committee with members of the city council to look at how to address the library system. As you all may recall, last year there was some big discussions about closing branches in the community, and so like that was a major concern with the construction of the new library, and so there was a great public outcry because libraries are important and satellite libraries are important. So it was a challenge to the city council and it was a challenge to the library board to figure out how we could make everything mesh well together while acknowledging that we have a brand new beautiful building in the all, while also continuing to support and ensure that the satellite branches were relevant and necessary.
So out of that joint meeting, long story short, what was decided was that the satellite branches cannot be everything for everyone. We have the all, and that's the serves the purpose. Having all the branches to continue to focus on everything, when some folks would migrate to the major library downtown, kind of takes away from the satellite branches. So out of those discussions, it was important to key on what the satellite branches could offer in the community, as in terms of isolation. What does each satellite branch really need to offer to be effective for where it's sitting at in the community? So Maya Angelou, the key identifications that were identified for there to make that branch centrally specialized in was literacy and school readiness, African American culture, digital inclusion, and workforce development. So the plan, the vision, the idea is that when we visit Maya Angelou will be geared toward these specific targets, because these are targets that have been identified through community surveys, through different types of studies and work studies in the community, that these are the most prominent issues that are facing this community. And so we want to ensure that those resources are being deployed at Maya Angelou to help the community utilize Maya Angelou to the best of its ability. The total price cost for the implementations for all that came to $256,858. The short-term solutions for Maya Angelou are projected at $94,204. They are looked to be implemented in 2021. The long-term solutions are projected at $162,654, and they're projected to be completed at 2022. Where we go from here, we have the workshop, the city council and the entire library board came together. We reviewed it, we looked at it. There will be another meeting. There were some changes or some recommendations. Councilman Johnson had brought up some additional improvements for Maya Angelou concerning maybe having murals painted on the outside of the building. I mean, the building is named after Maya Angelou, but there isn't anything that celebrates Maya Angelou when you look at that facility. He also addressed the issue of having some type of signage to help folks better be directed and able to find Maya Angelou, because where it isn't in a location that just says, here I am. And one of the biggest problems with Maya Angelou that we are having is attendance. We're having problems with attendance and utilizing the resources that we have. And so we want to be able to get those numbers up. We want to be able to ensure that that library branch is one, servicing the community at its greatest point, but two, that the community is utilizing that facility at its greatest point as well. And the third point that I will interject off in that with Councilman Johnson, when we go back to our committee before it goes to the final, we're also going to look at, maybe we can work in a request for signage at Maya Angelou as well. I know that they're talking about doing something with signs with some of the other branches. The Maya Angelou sign, it's not very attractive. It's not very eye-popping, it's not very eye-grabbing, and it's also something that needs to be addressed. Some of the other branches you'll see out there, they have these big signs pointing right to it. You know, it's colorful. You're coming off highways, going down streets and directions. You can see it. We need to make that change for Maya Angelou as well. So I will put out a request and an ask and a challenge to the community. If that recommendation with the mural and with the sign is not accepted into the final recommendation, if you know of someone, or if you yourself, an organization that is involved, would be willing to accept that challenge, to take upon that angst for the community, to maybe look at putting a mural and maybe help with recreation of the sign, we would greatly like to explore that as well. Councilman and I have had this conversation for about 2 years, where we tried to look at partnerships and different types of opportunities to get murals and to get a sign up there for Maya Angelou for visibility, but it just hasn't happened. So the greater scheme of things is regardless of what does or does not happen in the CIP, we as a community still have the opportunity to take that and to accept that challenge and make that happen, because that is our community library. So once we'll meet again in about a week and a half. Once that meeting is done, the recommendations will go back to the city council to see whether they can be worked into the CIP. And then at that time, the recommendations for the $256,858 currently, hopefully there'll be adjustments, because we'll get a little bit more of what we're seeking now. If all those improvements go through, it'll go before the city council, and they will have their ability to approve, and these projects will get underway. And if they don't, then we'll have additional discussions, and we'll be able to talk to our councilman to address that. Was there any questions over that? Yes, ma'am.
I wholeheartedly agree with what you're trying to do. I think one of the things that makes my Angela more accessible is more accessible hours to the people in the community. Because a lot of people don't even know when my Angelo's open. I've heard that more times than not.
Right.
When is my Angelo open? And how can we find out without having to make a call to my Angelo? They're not open on Sunday, which greatly reduces attendance because a lot of people go to the library on Saturday and Sunday. Well, they're closed. So, you might wanna consider that when you go back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That they need to make it accessible when people in the community can access it.
Absolutely. And with that, I will say that I know that the hours are shifted, based upon what they felt was best utilization of people visiting and hours. And my Angelo, based upon its ability to be open, is the usage doesn't support the expanded hours right now. And that's why the hours are the way that they're looking. Yes.
What is the schedule?
I'm pulling it up for you.
Thank you.
I got you.
Because this is the way the city does us. They will reduce hours, so when we don't use it, they'll make them inconvenient hours so that we don't use it. And then they'll utilize that to say that we're not utilizing it to close the program.
Absolutely.
If that's what they have done, that's what they're continuing to do, or they'll stick a price tag on it and say, hey, y'all can't cover this cost, so we're gonna close it down. And they have repeatedly done that. And people have asked me, well, when is my Angelo open? That's why I don't go there, because I can go downtown because I know when they're open, and they stay open till 9 at night.
Absolutely.
So I can go there and utilize that, but if they don't know, and like you said, signage would be helpful, when is it open? You know, we're right across the street from Wichita State. Do you know how many college students we could pull in there, even if they knew that they could get in there?
Right. Well, I would strongly suggest, and I will leave my email, and you have Councilman Johnson's contact as well. If everyone in this room, and that's what the power dynamics of these conversations are. I would recommend everyone in this room emails me, tell me the hours, tell me what you want, tell me what you need, tell me what best suits you, so I can take that back to that main board. Because all the information I have is what I've been told is what's being conducted through studies. You know, this is what has been looked at. And so, I mean, and to be honest, I don't know who was all surveyed for the study. I don't know. And so if you can email me and you can tell me that these are the hours that works best for you, and we can put something together and find out hours that if the hours that everyone in this room tells me that it works out better compared to what they're open to, then that gives me the information that I need and the data to go back and look at and talk to operations and planning and the library board of directors and say, well, this is the hours that were open, but I continuously hear that these hours are the hours that better suits the needs of the community. So what can we do to marry those together to make it to where the library is being utilized, not based off of preliminary studies and surveys, but based off of the information that has been supplied directly from the community. So I know you guys have Councilman Johnson's contact email, but I will leave him my personal email, and you can email me, and so that way we can get something together and we can figure that out.
And if you, Mr. Emerson, so these are the current hours under Wichita.gov, and it's open every day. And a suggestion might be we could print out some postcards,
Absolutely.
postcard size, and have those here.
Okay.
And continuously run the hours in the district on newsletter. I can do that for you.
Excellent.
Send me whatever information you want, and I'll put it in the newsletter for you.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm getting tired. Suggestion here, Lamont. I don't believe necessarily that you need to put murals on the side of the thing. I don't think you need signs out there. We're on a main thoroughfare of 21st Street. People know where it's at. They know it's been there. Problem is getting people to come into there. You know, so it's not that we don't know it. So, suggestion here to you is that you need to be kind of the catch-all for all in here. You need to reach out to the public, to the people in here to get them in there. So avenues of that, let's go to where the people are. You got organizations who need places to meet. Most of them have some youth group. Every church got a YPD in here, and their kids need to have a place, know about it as well. So sometimes maybe opening up meeting spaces and opportunities in there, once you get them in there, then you can show them all the wonders that you have.
Right.
But you have to reach out to where they are, because signs point them out, we drive by it, but we're a technology type environment down
Right.
here. You got a rescue center down there, people living out homeless in here, so a lot of the resources that we advertise here at the Atwater Center, and you got that program there for employment down there, but at your meeting the other night, they're talking about taking that away. You only had about 6 people annually come in there, so you got to go to where the people are. Every church, in their bulletins and those things, attend their meetings, the YPDs, fraternities, sororities, all these organizations who need places to meet, that have youth involvement in here, put that in front of them, so they'll know it's there.
Thank you.
So let me jump in. So I've done that. I went and met with MPHC. I've met with every fraternity and sorority. And they are using the space, but you have to remember also that the meeting space there is too small. So that's been the challenge as well, because when it was designed, that was an issue. The other thing is, just to push back a little bit, there's a lot of students at Wichita State that don't realize there's a public library there because there's no sign that says there's a public library. And when you see Wichita Public Library on that archway, it's faded. It blends in with the rest of that piece, so they don't know that it's right there. So something that highlights Maya Angelou will be attractive to those who look like Maya Angelou in the area, and they will say, man, what is that? Let me go in there, let's check it out. When you look at what the branch is doing and bringing in more of our history in there and what's going on in our community, people will come in to learn and see what that's about. One of the goals, again, is because we've had low attendance, is to increase attendance enough to where we expand that library. Right now, the footprint is small. I think that library is too small for this community. But until we pack out the doors, until there's enough demand, it won't happen. And what we saw in our joint meeting was that Westlink, which is always busy, is looking to expand. So until we can use this library, one, show people where it's at, utilize wayfinding signs from Shocker neighborhood to say there's a library there, and then make it attractive enough for people to come in, it won't get used. That is the Maya Angelou Branch Library, and inside there's one picture of Maya Angelou. So we need to beautify the library as well. So we got one more question, we got a lot of people speaking here.
Just want to push back.
We have a board member here, would it be possible to have the school, take field trips to the library so that the community knows, and when they, the African American community portion of that library, would it be advisable, this school board member, because it has, kids can have field trips there?
Bring that up.
Okay.
So Mueller does do that, and we can talk to Ben about doing some more of that.
I stand corrected on hours. There's 2 different hours listed on the internet, so they are closed Sunday and Monday right now. Tuesday 1 to 8, Wednesday through Saturday. Did you mention the Google project?
No, I was getting ready to.
And there's flyers up front.
And I'll let you.
I'll bring it.
Okay, and before I depart, I do want, there's the Google project going on this Thursday evening. I believe it begins at 6 o'clock. We've had some discussions in committee meetings concerning that because it has been low attended as well. I would encourage all of you to utilize that source, go and find out. It's Mondays and Thursdays from 6 to 9 at my home. So I would encourage you all to go, and if it's not fulfilling the needs of what you need or you think it needs to evolve to something else, then please go and please email me and please let us know so that we can make those recommendations. I will say that one of the recommendations I made in committee at our last meeting was I don't think that the program offers any strong actionable items. What is the call in to bring the community in for that program? I think it's a little vague on, I think it's a beautiful idea, but I think it's vague in its interactions. And so I suggested that it needs to be tightened down and it needs to have more focus on outcomes. Why am I coming to this presentation from 6 to 9? What am I going to get out of it? So I will follow up on those recommendations, but I encourage all of you to attend that and please leave us your feedback and let us know how that program needs to evolve to where it better suits your needs. I know that there are other folks who need to talk and speak, so I'm going to get out of the way. Thank you all. And if you have any questions, please contact Congressman Johnson and he'll get in touch with me. Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Anderson is one of 2 people on the library board. Donna Neal also serves on the library board as well with him, and she serves on our district advisory board. We'll have some of those members come up a little bit later. Next, I want to introduce Mr. Florence. He serves on MAPC for District 1.
My name is Terrell Florence. I serve on the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. And basically what we do is land management. Anything and everything within the city of Wichita and unincorporated areas of the Sedgwick County, we're involved in the development and the implementation of city policy and county policy. One thing that we are doing right now, they have what they call the Comprehensive Investment Plan, which is a 20-year plan that will say what the city will look like today, tomorrow, and 20 years from now. And we get involved in all aspects of life and when it comes to the land usage within the city of Wichita. Anywhere from where you're gonna put your storage facility, storage building in your backyard, to the design of a community with streets, utilities, and everything that's gonna affect your life. We want to do things so that we can promote economic growth and advance quality of life, and that we attract and retain the future generations for this area. Anything that you guys want and need as far as the land usage will come through that committee. Even areas that you think are just very insignificant, like plant a tree in your backyard. You have to make sure that that complies with the overall drainage plan so that it doesn't affect other people, your neighbors. Because how many times somebody did something, then all of a sudden the neighbors had a flooded backyard. So we go, we deal with issues like that. And reason why I work with Councilman on that, because I worked for Central Inspection for 20 years in that area. And so I worked on the enforcement side. Now I'm working on the development side of the policies that are going to affect your life. So I will answer any questions. That's just a small overview, because what we do actually affects everybody daily. We meet twice, I meet once a week on Thursday. And I will leave some contact information that you can reach me if you have an issue that you want us to look at. Now, remember what I said, that one plan is a 20-year plan. They started the process of that about 5-10 years prior to that. So when you see things coming, it's not because they just did it yesterday. These things were developed over an extended period of time. And so when you see it, it was, like I say, it was established years ago. Yes, sir.
In reference to your illustration about planting the tree, are you saying that I, as a homeowner who wants to do landscaping on my property,
Yes, I am.
have to get a permit?
Well, at the time in which you bought your property, it had a drainage plan for that property that should be given to you, which will allow for the runoff of that off of your property, so that it flows to an acceptable area that it doesn't negatively affect your neighbor. So what I'm saying then is that if you are going to do a major project, then you should contact MACD to look at the plan and make sure it is in compliance with the plan for your area. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your service, and I really am glad to hear your background in coming to this. As a neighborhood, we represent a neighborhood. I just wanted to say, we think it's really important that MACD, and whatever y'all's name is, sorry.
MAPCD.
Thank you. That you guys are staying real focused on keeping our city core very livable, right? that,
called the
that it,
EHD.
right, that, well, because when we see people, we wanna make sure that people can live and have a great life right here in Wichita with the, you know, keeping everybody close so that people can walk and bike and transit and all that kind of stuff, that we have good city life versus, you know, I had a fast food place, you know, pop up right in front of my neighborhood, and that all of a sudden makes things less livable for me. So just that focus of keeping neighborhoods very livable is something that I would like to
We
have
want
us
to
focus
make
on.
sure that any use that goes into any area is compatible with that area. And so that's the reason why cities like Houston don't have a zoning code. Wichita do. You will not have an industrial park right next to your house. We will make sure that whatever is planned for any piece of property is compatible with that neighborhood.
Do your
And
best anyway.
we work on that, you know, continuously. Yes, ma'am.
I want to know if the city has a program where they offer free dirt to put around your house.
Well, now you can get some soil from, now this is going off the subject a little bit, but you can go down to the wastewater treatment plant, and they do have soil there, but let me caution you. Now, there are a lot of little things that lives in dirt. And so if you put some of that stuff around your house, you might get visited by some of those little creatures. Okay, now, that's unintended consequences. That's one of the things that you look out
So
for.
do you know where you get dirt to put around your house?
Well, I'm saying you can go get that, but you need to make sure that you treat it properly prior to you put it around your house. That's the only place that I know of right offhand.
I mean, if you wanna, not free, if you wanna pay for it, you can call a construction company like Cornell or something and they'll bring you some. But you have to pay for it by the ton.
Dirt isn't expensive. The cost of dirt isn't expensive.
It's the labor to put it around your house, you're getting.
Well, yes and no.
Yes, ma'am.
Speaking to the streets, a lot of the central northeast, I know District 1 covers that. There used to be the alleyways between the houses, of course, they set those up now. And right now, I live on one of the last dirt roads that's kind of in the vicinity of our area. And there's still, I think, we pretty well gotten rid of a lot of them, but still there's a couple of them that we have. So, so are you saying that through the CIP, that we're able to get those streets, hopefully put into that CIP to pay for those streets?
There is a plan that takes these streets and have them in mind. And there are some plans to develop this. We don't work with that directly, but when they start making the plans, we make sure that the street is wide enough and long enough, and you have proper access on and off the property. Now, as far as your alleys are concerned, now you can get the city, Public Works to come in and clean the alleys, or there's a process that you can get the city to vacate that alley, and then you can utilize that as part of your property, primarily because if there's not any easements going there. If there's an easement going there and you put something on it, then the city has a right to come down and tear whatever you got to fix that problem.
Mr. Flores, I think you mean clean, you mean the word grading, they can regrade.
They can regrade the alley.
Regrade the alley, but
Yeah.
not clean
Well,
brush, but they can regrade.
They can regrade it,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, one more question, and we got 7 more speakers.
So, you and I have had a lot of conversation about this here. You're a vital part of this here. There's been several comprehensive plans, 95, 2005 update, 15, and now the 2013, with this revitalization core areas and these active communities in here. So a lot of things transpire and happen, and we just kind of see it happen once it's happened. We talk about 9th Street, 17th Street, some of those things in here that are occurring in here, all those things, revitalization. So it's very important, and you and Brandon are critical parts in bringing this information back to us and these opportunities to meet the things that are transpiring and going on. I think there's a meeting coming up here, People and Places, and that includes this core area. We've been into it. It also ties back into the construction of what 9th Street looks like, what 17th Street looks like, some of our other corridors as well, what the city would like some of these areas to look like throughout the city and us. And we need to be on top of all of that. You need to be a regular component of every one of these once a month meetings or more. And so, how can we get more visibility and stuff of this nature?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was gonna go back and say that one of my things that I wanna make sure that when some of these plans are made, since I'm there now, that our interests are included. And that People and Places, when they designed it, they designed what they had called neighborhood nodes. And when I looked at it, there was only one neighborhood node outside of, Wichita State, 17th and Hydraulic. That was the only one that was designed for our area. I went back and provided the necessary information for them to create an additional node. And that is down in the Dunbar area. So that would encourage public and private investment to develop that area. Now, is there opportunity to find other areas? Yes, I checked on that the other day. And so when we see areas that need to be included in that particular plan, we still have an opportunity to do so. Also, that will fall within what has been designed as opportunity zones. So that gives us a better chance to draw these necessary investments to improve the community in our area here. And like I say, there won't be, hopefully, we can prevent large portions of our area from being excluded from these plans.
You know the date on that meeting for People and Places, because I really encourage
It's,
all of us to go down there and go to that meeting. Because when they talk about these zones and places and stuff of nature in here.
I think it's Tuesday, but I'm not sure.
Our area is getting left out of big percentages. When you talk about opportunity zones, they jump around 13th, 17th, clean down the Grove, 21st Street, they're not in the zones.
But there is still opportunities now to include some things in there. And like I say,
So I just need you to be more visible.
Yeah,
more
and
present.
in fact, I'll do one better. You can reach me if you have any questions about zoning or what's going on in your neighborhood. My phone number is 262-7042. I ask you if you call that number, leave a message, because 9 times out of 10, I'll be busy, I won't answer it. I will try my best to get back to you. It's 262-7042.
Thank you.
Okay?
Also want to recognize State Representative Jim Ward, who just walked in. Thank you for being here. All right, up next, let's bring up Trish Heilman. She serves on the Wichita Transit Advisory Board. She can talk to you about what's going on with transit.
And I don't know if people want to look at this, we just got handed this, almost feel like transit swag. It's a whole bunch of bus paint schemes. We're getting electric buses, and so they just show how you can paint those fancy buses. I serve on transit, and there's been some neat changes that have happened recently, and one of those is that parking has come under the domain, city-owned parking has come under the domain of transit, which is really smart. Because when you're thinking about going downtown, you're thinking, do I pay for parking? Do I take a bus? Do I whatever? And so they're putting it all under the same roof so that we can work that and even maybe put it in the same app so that you can see, I can park here, I can take the shuttle to here, I can take the bus to all that kind of good stuff. It's a really good thought process. We've expanded some lines. There have been, a couple of years ago, there had been a pretty huge change in transit that decreased the service significantly because of cost. And so Mike Tan is a new director, not brand new, he's a little over a year there, isn't he?
Almost a year.
Almost a year, okay, so he's still pretty new. But he's been looking at making some smart expansions, like having a north-south route that goes up on Oliver to hit WSU. Students at WSU ride for free, WSU Tech ride for free with their badge. That gets that younger crowd using the buses and connecting with our city better and makes WSU a better sell for our city. Also coming real soon, I think next month, are new meter boxes on the buses, so you can use a cell phone for your tickets. You can order tickets on your cell phone and you can scan the meter boxes with your phone. Also with that technology comes really neat things like the ability to get 30, I know Jen, we're on the Transit Advisory Board together, and at 30 you can buy 30 bus rides that don't expire in a month. So saying, hey, I want to ride the bus sometime, but I don't really know when I want to do that, and I don't want to run down and get my ticket book or whatever. You can then have on your phone 30 rides that each time you use it, it swipes one, so that then you can go and ride whenever it's the right thing for you. In the whole parking transit thing, there's been changes that have just been proposed for Douglas, from Washington to all the way down on Douglas. Depends on who you talk to, how far back down they're going.
East or west?
East. Yes, ma'am, east. So, and that's going to be one of the exciting things for me as a transit thinking person is bike lanes. Protected bike lanes going all the way down one way and all the way down the other. So you're not even, skirting around each other on a bike. Everybody's driving the same direction on a bike. But they're protected bike lanes, so they're a 6-foot wide bike lane with cones and then parking next to that and then the traffic. So you're really, talk about safety, feeling safe driving down Douglas. That's going to be pretty huge, and that's connected to transit because of, again, getting people through and on buses, whole bikes, and you can do all that kind of stuff. Just getting people downtown and without having to have their own car, that's sort of all part of transit. I am on the finance committee. Mr. Tan set up different committees for the first time within our transit advisory board. And so I'm on the finance committee and have talked to him about, okay, he goes to meetings all the time and people say, hey, I want this, I want this, I want this, right? That's his job. And he said, Trish, if you can get me $7 million in additional funding for 5 years, a guaranteed 5 years, I can say yes to pretty much everybody that has asked me to do things. And so as a finance committee person, I'm keeping my head up, my ears open for where are those opportunities for finance. Now, everybody knows everybody needs money and that makes the world go round, right? So it's not like this stuff is just laying around. You don't have any $7 million laying around, do you, Brandon?
No.
Okay, just making sure. We know that this is not easy stuff to do, but at least we've got a number we can shoot for, and then we can get a lot better ridership. Mr. Tan wants to get into neighborhoods. So you really can live in Wichita and not have to have a car. The other big thing, we're getting new Q-line buses. Hey, skeptics, car skeptics. We're getting Q-line electric buses. Each of those buses is going to save us $1 million a year on, one of the biggest things is maintenance, not just fuel, but maintenance. And Westar Energy is giving the city a discount on their charging. So they have to pay a certain cost to keep the lights on, but then when they're charging those electric vehicles, they pay a decreased cost to help offset costs.
So if those are 7 new trolley buses at $1 million savings, isn't that $7 million?
Right? Yeah. We'll see what the actuals are and what the budgets look like and all that stuff. You're right. But here's the other thing: the Q line is actually a different funding stream because it's privately funded by the businesses along Douglas. So everything's more complicated than you hope. The other thing is the ballpark, the urban ballpark. We just had a presentation on that, the new ballpark. They're not going to have a ton of parking around that. We all know that, right? We, as the city transit, again, we have parking, flat parking, and also parking buildings across the river, a lot of it. and it's underutilized. So what the ballpark designers were saying is it's gonna be Transit's job to get people from those parking facilities to the ballpark within that hour. I was also skeptical, but, cause I said, okay, what's the engineering metrics on it? How fast can you move people on buses from one place to another? And they didn't have that worked out, but we are asking those questions as a transit advisory board, so, and feel free to keep those coming. Okay, Hushing, questions?
3 questions.
I have one. In the neighborhoods, any talk of better transit? I know they changed some things around a couple of years ago. Any other plans to do any other help to get some of the neighborhoods? And I ask because I disabled and get to the bus now and about 2 blocks either way to get to even a main. Some of them are 3 or 4 blocks. So any talk of doing any more to help?
Yeah, they went to a sort of a hub and spoke system is what they call it in transit, and there is desire to get it back to more of a grid system where you're getting deeper into neighborhoods so that people aren't having to go as far. And we hear every month about making better the seating areas for transit stops. You know, a lot of times it's just a pole in the yard. You know, there's not concrete around it. It makes it hard to access for people who have access issues. And so we hear about that, and there are specific things that are asked for and coming each month. But again, you know, everything costs. So yes, there's talk constantly about getting better. It's the where do we find the money to get the people to make it happen.
Can you talk about paratransit at this point?
Hold on. Yeah, this gentleman
Couple other.
and Ms. Wilson.
I can though.
Could you give us some statistics on just what is usage in the city? Is it extremely low?
Yeah, the usage in the city is extremely low. I can't give you statistics. We don't generally talk about, you know, we do talk about increased ridership from year to year on year statistics, but not like what percentage of the city uses transit. I've never seen that number in the year that I've served. But the ridership is increasing in the range of 10 to sometimes 20%, you know, year on year from last year. So ridership is getting better because first of all, we've got a marketing department for the first time in a long time. So, you know, I mean, when you tell people about something, they'll use it if it makes sense for them.
Ms. Wilson.
I was gonna speak on paratransit.
Oh.
For people that have disabilities and stuff, there's a process whereby you can contact the MTA and, at request paratransit, you have to fill out paperwork, you have to be qualified for federal standards, and then have your ride set up, and I think it's a 48-hour notice for wherever you wanna go, when you wanna go. But they're very reliable, they're very accurate, and they will either pick you up and take you to catch a bus. So, and that's one thing that's underutilized is paratransit. And if you qualify for disability, a lot of times, because you qualify for disability, it will cover the cost of the paratransit. So, people just need to reach out and ask what are the qualifications to contact, MTA.
If I could add to that, we have a travel trainer in Wichita, and I'll get her business card, the name of Raven Alexander. She'll come to your organization with a PowerPoint presentation, show you how to ride, show you how to download the app, and since she goes to the schools, and so she's been at East High once a week, helping those students ride, different middle schools, helping them get there. And in the summertime, she helps people figure out their summer youth employment route to get to work, and so we do have a specialized travel trainer by the name of Raven.
And that's huge, that's really huge. And this summer again, we're gonna be having the Yes Passes so that students can go to the downtown transit station and get their RD. My boys did the job prep and they rode the bus. Mama didn't have to be a taxi. They rode the bus to and from their job all summer long, and it was amazing, and they still know how to ride a bus. It's a skill, it's a learned skill, so they still know how to ride a bus, and they can get themselves anywhere in Wichita, and just they have autism. So, you know, if my boys can learn this stuff, we can all use this stuff, and our teenagers can really get out there and get busy. So, sorry.
One thing I can say, in 2014, the total ridership within the city of Wichita, count everything done, was 2.5 million.
Tricia, you have a contact number that I do for you?
Yes, I will give it to you. But, and you can contact me through Brandon or, me. And I'll get that to you. I'm at heilmanict@outlook.com is one of my emails.
We
So.
can send everyone's email with their permission at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. All right. Trying to keep us on track. Next up, we will have Mr. Carl Stovall on the Cultural Funding Committee. Talk about money.
Come on, Paul, bring it.
Good morning, I'm Carl Stovall, and I'm not hearing anything from Lonnie Barnes this morning. I represent District 1 on the Cultural Funding Committee. The Cultural Funding Committee is a committee that reviews the grants and awards the grants per the qualified grant applicants. I went personally to a number of the churches and a lot of the musicians being on the music scene and told them about, there's an artist access grant that you can get if you qualify and you pass and you give us, your grant is accepted and properly filled out, where you can go and take training for classes. You can take, go to workshops. Like, there are guys here that go to the Gospel Music Workshop of America. They can be funded for that. I've told them, but we're not getting enough applicants in that realm. Now, that's not just from District 1, I mean all over Wichita. We're just not getting enough. Now, this year, in terms of the development grants, we got more. And I wish I could help. There's been some people even in this room that have applied, but ethically and morally, I can't help them. But if you contact me, I can tell you how to properly submit your grant and things that you need to do to improve upon it. If that makes, if there's anybody in here, right now we're just starting to review the grants for the 2020 year, and then in December, if you watch the city website, that's when the grants open up for we're doing 2021, that's when the grants will open up for 2022. And I encourage any organization that's based with the arts to apply. One of the things that I know that I have been successful at in this recommendation is there were a number of people on the committee who feel like almost as like it's their money, so they're pretty tight with it. One of the things that I've done is help open up people in terms of the value system, in terms of what may be a value to one may not be a value to the other, but then that's vice versa. Our things are just as important to us as they are to them. And so, again, I encourage you to go to the city website, to the cultural funding, and apply when that time comes up. The grant application runs from December through, I think it's the first week in February. So I really encourage you, if you're an arts organization, or if you know somebody that's a developing artist and they want to go to a workshop, they want to attend a workshop or classes, or if you, now we don't do granting for things like festivals and that sort of thing. That's one of the things I learned when I became part of it. But again, if you're a developing arts committee, organization, and you have to be 501c3 nonprofit. So again, Mr. Councilman Johnson, through him, you can reach me, or I can give anybody my contact information before we leave. Okay. Any questions?
3 questions.
Okay. Mr. Knox.
Sports is considered arts, correct?
No, sir. Arts.
Dancing?
Huh?
Dancing is an art?
That's an art. That's correct.
It's step to step, right?
Yes.
I'm just surprised that they don't consider sports as
Well, the city of Wichita developed the criteria some years ago, under, the recommendation from some federal organizations that they used a lot of the language from it. And so sports is not one of them. Religious activities is another one that's not accepted. But anything to do with the arts or the cultural is accepted.
Mr. Cook?
Are you a member of several artistic communities or just one or two?
I'm just a member represent Councilman Johnson on the City of Wichita Cultural Arts Funding Committee.
I suspect your word's not getting out well enough. Artists are a notoriously independent crowd who do not want to follow anybody's advice.
That's true, and
I'm aware of that, I'm one of them.
yeah, and again, that's one thing that we're looking at as a committee. How can we better get the word out to artists?
Let me talk to you at some point.
Okay, that's great.
Ms. Lawrence?
The cultural arts funding, you said that we need to look on the City of Wichita website. That is a difficult website. Any idea where to find it? Camila or Brandon?
right now.
Okay, thank you.
Wichita.gov under departments is actually the first one, arts and cultural services.
Okay, under department.
It's A, arts and cultural services.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just in the interest of time, I'm going to tell you after every speaker, I'm going to yell out 3 questions. So if you have questions, be one of those first hands up. I'm watching. Deviating a little bit, I want to introduce you to someone. He won't take his old job back, but I'll still call him Captain. So Mr. Bender retired from Union Rescue Mission, and then Captain Nolte retired from the City of Wichita and found himself now leading Union Rescue Mission. So wanted to introduce him now as the director of Union Rescue Mission.
All right, Dave Cook can't ask me any questions. He's gonna already say I've been calling you, but if you learn how to text, John, how are you? Good to see you. Ellen's back there. It's fun for me to come here and see familiar faces, and I know several of you. I'm just going to take a few minutes and kind of let you know what we've got going on down at 2800 North Hillside. We've got some really exciting things going on in helping what we hope will be beneficial for the community. I spent 26 years on the police department, and last fall began the process of saying, what's the next chapter? Well, the next chapter, as God had it written for me, was to come over here to the Union Rescue Mission. So whether they were prepared for me or not, there I am. And one of the things that as I listened to the conversation this morning is that in being in the government kind of sector for 26 years, the frustrating part is that I always wanted to be able to come up with the $7 million and get that bus route and all this going on. So as a public servant, and I'm sure that Brandon would love to be able to address everything, but there's a limit to what government can do for us, and that's why we're here, is to say how can we help support government and get the job done. Well, that's really a big reason why I'm at the rescue mission now, is that I see an opportunity to really impact some processes that we can help the city out with in getting men into productive transitional housing, get them jobs, get them spiritual help where they need it, and get them as active and productive members of the community. So what I didn't know was going on at Union Rescue Mission. So the first thing I'm going to ask of you is I would like you to be our guest at a lunch and learn. Every month we have what's called a lunch and learn. This month it'll be April 11th. It's from 11:30 to about 1. You will be our guest for a meal. It's a first-rate meal. I'm telling you what, we don't pull out. We'll pull out all the stops to make sure that you eat well. And then we will talk about our programs, what we are offering out of the rescue mission. I think when I was onboarding, one of the things that I thought was, well, we provide overnight shelter for men that may be experiencing homelessness. It's a whole lot more than that. We've got a book enterprise called New Leaf Mercantile, where we take in old books that people have donated or even libraries have donated. And we look to see if we can turn around and sell those to support the mission, and if not, then we recycle what is not going to be used. That's just one aspect. Now you told,
Time out. Can you repeat that date again?
yes, it's April 11th, 11:30. I brought cards and I will leave them here so you can get on our website and see it as well. It's urmwichita.org. Did we help provide breakfast today? Okay, so your breakfast this morning was a result of the work at the Union Rescue Mission. We have a catering service. We do. So our goal is to take a man that might be experiencing addiction, homelessness, and get them into some programming that can really help change their lives. But it's a tough business. So the second ask I'm going to make from you is that I think that there's a common perception that homelessness might be that person that we find downtown, under the bridge, living, an existence that we know they need help, but sometimes through mental health issues or other just sheer stubbornness, they don't want help. But there's a second kind of homelessness, and I think it relates to where we all need to see it on a daily basis, and that's people that are living in the margins on people's couches, where they're maybe staying a couple of weeks, and then going to another couch, and staying a couple of months. And then they find themselves maybe a day or two on the street. What I want to ask for you is that if you run into people that are in those situations, especially men, that you reach out to us because we'd like to help them. I think they're homeless, but they don't even know that they're homeless because that's what they're used to. They're used to transitioning here and there. So we can help stabilize that if they're interested. So we've got a lot of things going on. We're getting into looking at medical respite. Hospitals that are discharging their patients are asking us to take on a medical component where we can kind of help men that are experiencing homelessness on top of medical issues. So there are so many little paths that we're going on that if you have interest, the third thing I would say is we can use help. It would be easy for me to just say, hey, give me money. Everyone needs money, but we just need help. We need partners. We need people praying for us. We need people just coming out and seeing what the needs are so that we can partner with you, so that we can help the city ultimately, and the community then gains, and we have this positive. The last thing I'll say is that we did just get done finishing and dedicating a $3.5 million project on our campus at 2800 North Hillside. There are 24 transitional housing units there. We just moved the first 3 residents in this week. That is the final step in our programming to get someone that's experiencing homelessness or addiction into programming and then allow them to move into these transitional housing units. So we've got a lot of opportunities here to serve the community. And we also want to teach them to be good community stewards as well. So with that, that's my spiel. Pastor, how are you? Good to see you.
3 questions.
So you said you have 24 units, so is that one person per unit?
Yes.
So how many, so is this like 24 revolving? And
So how it works, that's a great question. That is the final piece of that. We actually have about 50 men that live on campus in our actual programming. These units that they're moving in are actually, they have a key from the outside. They can come and go. We are giving them a place to stay. And so instead of, say, getting them into a program and then saying, well, good luck out on going back to the neighborhood where they got into all sorts of trouble, we can now give them an opportunity to pay some programming fees where we don't call it rent because we're not landlords, but they pay to live there and be in that part of the program, establishing history of paying bills, working on a budget. So that piece is the new piece. We now have about 50 men that are staying on our campus on a nightly basis, just in programs. And that's then in addition to what we have coming in for men just staying for emergency.
How long? So what is the transition?
Well, so an overnight guest, they can be in for 30 days, and then we ask them to make a decision on what they want to do, and they're out for 30 days. So it's a 30-30 for an overnight emergency guest. If that guest decides that they want to be in one of our, we call it Courage to Change programs, they get accepted into New Beginnings. Those programs are either several weeks long or several months, up to 8 months for the New Beginnings. And if they graduate from those programs, they have the opportunity to move into the transitional housing. So it's kind of a step-by-step. As they take on the responsibility, they move into the next area.
Mr.
Great
Stover.
question.
You were talking about your book. What type of books are you accepting?
We'll take any kind of books. Now, I will tell you this, that some of the books we won't resell, depending on what the title is. So we're not censoring per se, but I guess we are censoring. We're a Christian organization, and so we're gonna look at that. But you bring the book, doesn't matter what you bring to us, we'll look at, and then we will recycle it. The same goes if you have clothes that you want to donate to us, we can take those. We take food as well. So if you're doing spring cleaning, we can help you out. Even if, and someone said, well, do you take women's clothing? Well, yeah, we do. What we do is we send that to Goodwill, and Goodwill gives us vouchers that we can then give a man to go down there and use it. So whatever you want to give us, we can take.
I didn't see a third question.
I got a comment, just a quick.
Dave doesn't get one. Yes,
I have a quick comment. I work with youth through sports. And just kind of, we were wrestling at a national tournament in Waterloo, Iowa. This guy recognized us. And he, for that 4th of July weekend, he took us in and fed us. Brought us over and brought us barbecue. Of course, wrestlers have to make weight. When we were done making weight, he treated us like family. And then about 12 years later, I saw him come into your rescue me. It touched me. And I come to talk to him because what I wanted to do is I wanted to come back and offer a program with our youth where we can come in like once a week to serve and talk with people. So if we still, is that still, at that time, it was some process, they wouldn't allow us to do it, but.
Let me offer this as just a conversation point that I would love to sit down and discuss how that would fit into what our ministry model is. So if you have something like that, I will tell you that I just had a conversation with one of our board members about doing things with sports and physical activity.
Well, it wouldn't be, the athletes I work with, I just want them to see the other side about giving, you know.
Absolutely.
And seeing the difference, and sometimes like just that gentleman that I incurred with, it just, how he touched us, then maybe we can touch him, so.
Grab one of my cards and let's talk, absolutely. Dave, no questions, but do you take text messages now?
No.
All right, thank you all.
Alrighty, as somewhat of an interesting transition, let's bring up Pastor Sims. He serves on the Wichita Citizens Review Board, so we don't have an appointee from District 1, but before it was changed, he was the appointee from District 1. So, Pastor Sims.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson, and good morning. Good morning. I bring you greetings from the Plainview Church of God in Christ here in South Wichita, Kansas. I'm a pastor, and so also am a member of the Greater Wichita Ministerial League. But I serve as the vice chair for the Citizens Review Board. A little point of history, when I came to Wichita in June of 2010, it used to be the City Managers Police Review Board. It was changed after the transition and Gordon Ramsay came in about 18 months after that. It was rebranded, reorganized as the City of Wichita Citizen Review Board. Cap Nolte was our original liaison to help us in our getting started. And we have, initially it was 7 full-time board members, and now that's been amended to 12. And it's a great diversity. Have 3 African-American males, 3 Hispanics, so on and so forth. And so there's great representation. One of my requirements to be on the board is to attend what's called a CPA, and that is the Citizens Police Academy, which, if you're not aware, it's a class that is offered by the police department to the citizens of Wichita to get training on what your police officers do, okay? It's a 13-week class. It currently takes place every Monday night, usually somewhere between 6:30 to 9:30. This coming Monday, because we're meeting downtown to jail, it'll start at 6 o'clock. But there's a Sergeant Kenneth Kimball, all right, who is over that. I have his number if you want to write that down. It's 648-6469. Contact Sergeant Kimball if you're interested in going through the Citizen Police Academy class. There is a background check that you have to pass, but it certainly is open. And I encourage our community to avail yourselves of that opportunity. Just yesterday, I did a ride-along with the deputy marshal from the sheriff's department. A week before that, I did a ride-along with a Officer Meyer from the City of Wichita Police Department. And those are things that are available to you to actually ride along with the police officer. One of the things that's going on right now with the board, and the chair of our board is an attorney by the name of Jay Fowler, who works for Fulton and Seaton, and again, I serve as the vice chair. But on this week, we had a homicide. We had a murder in our community that took place between 11th and 12th on Minnesota. Well, that was Monday night. Monday night, I got out of my class at 9:30. 9:37, I get a call from Deputy Chief Salcido informing me that there was a murder and that he wanted to come and get me, take me to the scene. So I was at the scene. Certainly there were taped off areas, but I was the guest of the Deputy Chief Salcido, and so was at the scene, saw the body. First thought maybe it was game, but it was a drug situation. But a young man, 23 years old in our community, was murdered. Okay, and so those things are happening. And let me say, because of all of my involvement, you have a good police department with the PD, with the sheriff's office. Is it perfect? No. But the only way we're going to make change is not being on the outside throwing rocks. We got to get on the inside. That's why you need to take that class, CPA, Citizen Police Academy class. And with that said, any questions?
3 questions.
Yeah.
I see them all. Ms. Trish, Janet, Luana.
Is there any chance that the CPA class is offered on any day other than Monday in the future? Like, are they switching it around? Because Monday is also a commitment, and you know what I mean? If sometimes you have a standing commitment on a day and can't make Mondays.
To my knowledge, no, but that would be a Sergeant Kimball question.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Thacker? Ms. Thacker? Ms. Thacker?
Yeah, my question is there a cultural awareness training for the police department?
Part of their training,
Cultural awareness training.
there is a cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity. Let me help you understand. Police officers go through extensive training, and they have to be certified through what's called CPOS. All right, that is the Commission on Police Officer Standards and Training. So you can ask them, are they CPOS certified? If they are, there is certain training they should have gotten, they should have received. Okay. Let me say also about our meetings. Our meetings are open to the public. Okay. There is a quorum requirement. Dave back there comes to every meeting. At the beginning of our meeting, there is on the agenda, at least a 15-minute opportunity for public comment, public question. So you can come. The next meeting is Thursday. We usually meet the 4th Thursday of each month. The next meeting is Thursday, April the 25th, from 4 to 6 p.m. It's at the Evergreen Library. We were talking about the library earlier today. The Evergreen Branch Library, 2601 Arkansas, which is all Kansas.
They gonna get you.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So
Last-
that's our next meeting.
Last question, Mr. Shazer.
I applied to be on the citizen review board and I was selected. And so I about was that after the cases or after an incident is when you guys are involved. So from your perspective, coming on the backside, has that been effective? I mean, or what change does that have you accomplished from coming on the
Good
backside?
question. One of the things that we cannot look at, as the board is anything that is presently under quote-unquote investigation. All right, like there was a swatting incident in the community a while back. Okay, and I believe that officer was terminated, but there's still pending litigation. And so we can't touch anything as the board that is still under pending kind of investigation or something like that. Okay.
Right, but so my question was.
So looking at it on the back end.
Yeah, what are you able to accomplish or have been able to accomplish?
Well, what happens is if you make a complaint, it'll go through a process. The city, professional standards, rural, same as IA or internal affairs, will look at it. They'll make a ruling or a finding. If that person is not happy or satisfied with that ruling or finding, they can appeal to the city manager, which we are his representatives. The Citizen Review Board is his, and then the case can come to us, all right, and we can take a look at it. And there have been times that we've looked at things and sent it back, saying reconsider so and so and so. Okay. Thank you.
Just for everyone's information, Wichita has had more than one swatting incident. Just want to put that out there. It's not just one case. All right, this young man was actually the first person here, I think, that I saw when I walked up. So Alejo serves on our park board, and he represents District 1. And he's got some exciting stuff going on. So I will let him address you all on what they're doing.
Thank you.
Nice one.
Of course, man, I'm an alumni. Thank you, everyone. My name is Alejo Cabral, and I represent District 1 at on the Parks Board Commission. So this last year has been dominated quite a bit. Our conversations have been dominated quite a bit by golf courses. So this year we are, or the Golf Advisory Committee is putting together a master plan for the courses to really help identify and solve some of the issues. One of the problems with the golf courses in the past was that there wasn't an organized plan or something that covered every course that said, this is how we're going to solve XYZ issue moving forward. I will tell you that with CLAP right now, they are doing community listening and planning for that course. I don't believe that course is going to remain a golf course, but it's going to remain a green space for the community. And so right now there's a lot of engagement with District 3 and their advisory committees and their council member. So that is happening, but from our end, District 1, McDonald is our golf course and it's not going anywhere. Just so that you know that. So we'll be looking at something from the Golf Advisory Committee either on Monday or at the next meeting in May. Another exciting thing that we have going on is on Monday we'll be looking at turning every park in the city, owned by the city, into a smoke-free zone. So that includes cigarettes, e-cigarettes, any form of tobacco. Currently in the United States, I believe it's 77% of parks are that way. In Wichita, that's not the case. And so one of the things that we're doing is making parks smoke-free. There was a presentation that was done by some youth and the Tobacco-Free Wichita, I believe was the organization. And I think in District 1, just in one park alone, they found over 60 cigarette butts around a playground and a swing set for children. So I think this is something that's been necessary. And I think it's a great thing that we're doing moving forward. Something else that we're doing to help address some of the issues with our parks and specifically our rec centers. With McAdams Park, we are working with arts partners. So they are a local nonprofit that use art integration to teach science, to teach STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math to children. So they're working with Wichita State University and their engineering department on helping address issues and helping to use the kids at Louverture to come up with solutions for how to address certain issues at McAdams Park. And the idea is that these problems that persist and exist at the park, whether it's, you know, playgrounds or not enough lighting or not enough walking paths or not being safe, that we can turn around and use these things and replicate them in different parts in the district. So we wanted to engage with kids because they're really the ones who are using the park, and we wanted to make sure that they're designing a space that's going to be appealing to them. Otherwise, that's all I have. Our meetings are every second Monday, 3 to 5 at City Hall. So I invite anybody to attend. They're open to the public as well, and there's always time for public comments at the beginning as well. So I hope that you all are welcome. Understand that you're welcome, and I'd love to see as many of you there as possible.
3 questions, I already saw one.
Yes, how are you intend to be able to control the smokeless parks? Is there manpower? I mean, that's outdoors.
Yeah.
This is a great idea. I'm not a smoker, so I'm all for that. But how would you be able to implement that, to see it all the way through?
So that's what we'll be looking at on Monday. But my understanding is police officers are already patrolling parks and areas that have a lot of pedestrian usage. So right now, there's nothing that says that civilians can't smoke at a park. So now, by putting this ordinance in place, they'll have something that they can go up to some. Yes, there'll be signage. There'll be an announcement that's made. So once it's approved through the park board, it'll be sent to council, and then there will be part of that will include signage, marketing, that type of stuff. We want to make sure that individuals are aware of that.
I think I heard it's gonna be neighborhood association presidents too.
There's gonna be.
Helping patrol that. That's what I heard.
That'd be great. I hadn't heard that, but that'd be wonderful.
So, saying that, have you taken, guys, because a lot of people have their family, a lot of reunions there.
Yes.
Have you guys considered that? Because that would, and also you have like softball events, football events. Sure. So, what's the consideration you guys taking under that?
So my understanding is that there's gonna be the way that it was explained to us through the proposal that was presented to us by Smoke Free Wichita. I think there's gonna be designated areas, but that's what we'll be looking at on Monday. We'll be getting a comprehensive thing. But the thing is like, we looked at, so there's a nice handout out front that provides an example of cigarette butts that were found around our community. So like I found one park around the swing set that was like 60 cigarette butts. And I don't have children, but if I did have children, I wouldn't want them to be swinging and playing on that. Like O.J. Watson, for example, around their place said they found over 400 cigarette butts. And this was all done in a matter of 30 minutes, I believe, that they cleaned these areas up. Like I said, we'll be looking at all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that designated.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, Monday, Monday, not tomorrow, but in 2 days, we'll be looking at that. Yes, sir?
I'm from the Fairmount district, and mostly with our park, we have a lot of, the problem is the trash, the littering, and there's been some dumping out there as well. And a lot of that hasn't been regulated at all. And I mean, the grass is, rarely cut, and that park has been getting a lot of usage here lately. It's a lot of kids that have been going down there now. And I'm just wondering what you guys plan on doing about that. Is there gonna be more trash pickups? Cause I think a lot of people use the trash out there to dump personal trash.
Okay.
And so it's always overflowing and all over the place, so I mean.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I'll bring that up with our park director and see what we can do to get some more, clean up around it, but also make sure that people aren't just dumping their trash in the park, especially where kids are playing.
Yeah.
And you said the grass wasn't being cut either?
No, the grass
Okay.
is an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could the city website under the parks department specifically be updated to include which restrooms are actually open? And when those open and
I'm like on Ninth Street, apartment on the side, I know why, they'll only open that restroom if you reserve that, call them and reserve that shelter. Then they'll open up, otherwise it's not open.
Well,
Yeah, so I walk by there and it's never open, and I'm like, oh, guess I gotta go home.
cleanliness and lighting of those restrooms.
I know why.
But I appreciate you guys. My email will be sent out later on, so if you guys have additional concerns, questions, suggestions, anything that you need us to work on, please feel free to email me. And yes, thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
All right, we almost caught up. We have two more, and then I've got a couple DAB members I'll introduce and let them speak. And then I will try to run through some updates. So next up, I'm going to introduce Ellen. She serves on our Animal Control Advisory Board. Some of you have been seeing in the paper things about feral cats. I think that's taken up most of her time. Ellen.
Good morning. My name is Ellen Porter, and I sit on the Animal Control Advisory Board. This is a board that meets quarterly, and we advise Animal Control, or Wichita Police Department, as to issues on animals and communities working together. We hope, at least my point in there, is to represent not just animals, but also to represent the community, District 1. Some of the things that we've done, I'm going to have John Stevens stand up, because I took his place when he retired, or resigned, I guess, I don't know, anyhow. He did a wonderful thing. He put together a very, very good dangerous dog ordinance that we really needed to be updated, and it's there to protect the public, and he did a very good job with that, and it was passed as an ordinance, and is doing really well, and I think it's really helping them, that what you did, so he did very well. I'm gonna hand out some brochures that we did on pit bulls. I don't know if you guys know, but we have a pit bull ordinance here in the city of Wichita. Pit bulls must be spayed or neutered, must have a rabies vaccination, and must be microchipped. And I hate to say this, guys, but every time we go to a meeting and we have the animal numbers given to us, District 1 is right there at top on pit bull ordinance of issues. We seem to have a real serious problem with the dog bites, with pit bulls, and also other things. And so, if you know of anyone who has a pit bull, if you know of anyone who has a pit bull, let them know about this ordinance, because it's something that I think a lot of people don't know about. And so that's something that we worked on and put together along with the city to sort of educate the public. The hot topic today is, as Councilman Johnson said, is feral cats. I think for the last, half a year or year, we have worked on what to do with stray, feral, and abandoned cats in neighborhoods. And up until, presently, it's not anything changed yet. Presently, there are no ordinances that actually work towards cats. I think the only ordinances that we have, and we do have some of these in Spanish, if you know anyone who needs one in Spanish, is that you're limited on what you can own. You can own 2 cats without any restrictions. You can own 4 cats with an animal maintenance permit, or you can own up to 8 cats with a variance. And a variance is everyone in your around you says yes, you can have 8 cats. This is an important ordinance because this is going to change the TNR ordinance that we've been working on. Is going to change that, and it's going to change it kind of dramatically, maybe, I don't know. But it's now going to allow people to have and care for legally, because it's been happening now, they're doing it now, but it's going to make it legal for them to now care for up to 8 feral cats in their home or their residence or wherever they have that. And it's actually the ordinance is passed through our board. It passed last December, and it only passed on a 4-3 vote because it's a very controversial ordinance. We have a lot of people who are for it, we have a lot of people who are against it. I voted not to pass the ordinance as it read because I didn't think it was complete. I'm not against TNR. I know we have cats out there. The reason that you do TNR stands for trap, neuter, and release. The reason that we have TNR is because, or that we're looking at this, is because right now the cats that are out there are just like, they're not being addressed, and they're reproducing, and they're causing more issues. And so trap, neuter, and release is one way to at least catch them, get them spayed or neutered, and prevent them from having young. There is controversy as to whether trap, neuter, and release really decreases the number of cats in the neighborhoods, and a lot of research says it doesn't. But at least it's one way to attack it, to start doing something about it. We can't just not do something about it. We can't just keep our eyes closed. Because right now, believe it or not, it is estimated that we have over 100,000 feral and stray cats in our neighborhoods. And the bad thing is that it's in our inner city neighborhoods. It's not in HOAs, but it's basically in our inner city neighborhoods, District 1, District 3, District 4, and District 6. And I have heard pros and cons from people that are very much interested in being able to do this, and other people who say, I don't want 8 to 12 cats living next door to me. And so it's been very, very controversial. The reason that there was a 4-3 vote was that 3 of us felt that it did not go far enough. We wanted it to be stronger to address protection of neighborhoods and people's property rights, and also to protect wildlife areas. But first and foremost, we also want to be able to make sure that the public or the neighborhoods are not affected by the fact that it may soon become legal for people to have these animals, and also how many cats or how many colonies you can have in a neighborhood. So those are things that we're still dealing with. I think it's going to come up to DABS May, do you think?
I think so.
Okay, because
May or June for District 1.
May or June for District 1. I know it's coming up to DAB in District 3 in May. And so I think that it's important for everyone to understand it. It's hard, it's an involved ordinance. We would like to see some caregiver guidelines so that, we don't want someone's desire to help these cats, and we don't want to put anything to sleep. That's what we sort of, instead of picking them up and killing them, we're trying to do an alternative of that. But we also don't want that to interfere and cause issues with a neighbor or a neighborhood. And one of the things I would ask you is, I would like to have your input as to how you feel about this. Would you like to have in your neighborhood, cat colonies, and if you did have cat colonies, would you like them to have some sort of way to abate any nuisances that colony may have? And you can contact me. I'll give you a website email where you can contact me if you have an issue on that, or if you have any other animal issues. Says you have a problem with dogs or something like that. Anything that you have as far as animal issues, I would like to hear, because on our meetings, we have an opening where each district is supposed to say, do you have any issues in your district? And so far, I haven't had a few. I had some feral cat colony issues that I didn't bring up at one time. We meet quarterly as opposed to monthly, and our next meeting is April 17th. And we meet at the Kansas Humane Society from 4 till about 5:30. And so I welcome people to come. There is a time to speak. I think it's at the end of our meeting. Are there any questions?
3 questions.
I should have said that.
1, 2.
2 questions.
Go ahead.
8 cats, that's a lot of cats next door to you. So you're trying to pass an ordinance so we can have, 2 cats?
No, the ordinance would pass, the ordinances and states would allow individuals to have up to 8 feral cats that they care for.
You don't need no ordinance for nobody next door to you having 8 cats. What about 2?
But the issue, may I? Because one of the things that currently people feed stray cats, and when people come and say, you can't have those 2 cats, then they go, they're not mine, right?
Every day.
So this ordinance is trying to say, if you feed them, they're yours.
No, that is not what the ordinance says. Right now, I'm sorry, right now, we actually have an ordinance that says if you feed them, it's yours, okay? This ordinance wants to allow, and I'm gonna be really honest with you, okay? The ordinance allows an individual to feed them and not own them, okay? Not necessarily be ownership or take ownership of them or be liable for any damages that they have. That's why the ordinance is very controversial. How many of you guys have heard about the ordinance? Okay, all right. Because it is something that, I'm an animal person. I run an animal rescue. I run a spay neuter clinic. I love animals, but I also understand that some people may not you know, that we should not impose that on other people. But the animals are out there. The good thing is that instead of your neighbor feeding them and allowing them to have babies and, you know, more kittens, that they will be spayed or neutered so that they won't increase in numbers, and that's the point with TNR.
You know, here's your second.
Well, and that's why I was gonna ask about the TNR. I had initially heard that the city might put some money forward to help people pay for that, because you know many of these people that are doing this do not have the money. They're barely able to afford to feed the cats, but they just have the heart, so they can't.
What do you
not
mean
let
pay
them
for?
not
Can
eat.
define pay.
To help pay for the spaying and neutering.
That is not part of this ordinance, and that's not something that the Wichita Police Department is looking at. But I will tell you that I also run a low-cost spay neuter program called Spay Neuter Kansas, and we do them for almost, well, for $30 or free for people. So we're here to help people who have that issue. And there's also other places that you can.
You let them, I mean, because trapping is another issue for a feral cat, so there's
Yes.
a lot more involved than just.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's another organization called Friends of Feline that does help. Okay, that's a private organization, they do help, they have some.
So is there a way that this can be written so that people have those resources? I mean, somehow that they know who to call?
I think that if there's that ordinance, that it'll be out there as to who you can call. I think the police department still does tell people where they can get traps. In fact, you can lend traps.
People do that here in my neighborhood, but it would be nice if they were able to get them fixed so they weren't reproducing.
Yes, that's what we're looking at.
My name is Marilyn Overton, and the reason I started on this, and I'm trying to make it short, I started being over our neighborhood because of cats. I want everybody to understand this. I learned a lot about cats and feral cats, because there's a difference between stray cats, original cats, and feral cats. In my neighborhood, I had a lady who loved cats. I'm allergic to cats.
And are we
And
gonna
we have
do?
to protect those of you, and there needs to be an ordinance that we do not have these cats running around, whether they're spayed or not spayed. Because they have it for dogs, they need it for cats. I had over 40-some cats in my neighborhood. They were walking down the street like they owned it, and they were spraying my house, and I was sick. I tried my best to work with the animal control until I got over to the chief of police, because you guys was going to charge me to get a cage just to, and I had to pay for it. They finally realized, I said, I pay my taxes. And I shouldn't have to do this. Feral cats, the way, and people love them, and this lady said, well, you just don't like animals. I love animals, but I'm allergic. You have to respect, I'm a human being. And I think it comes to the point that they don't realize other people, just because you like them, I don't like them. Just because you have a dog, I don't mean I'm not a dog. We have to respect other people's property, and this law, and I have read about it. I think it needs to be a little more stricter, and like you said, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, but having those and even letting them go, no, it is that bad. I have dealt with cats, and this is the reason I got started, and I've been over the neighborhood for 8 years. And that was the reason, these feral cats, and it took me 2 to 3 years to get those cats out of my neighborhood. So, those of you who, you say, oh, it's just one, maybe one cat's fine, it helps with the mice and all of this. But when you got that many cats, and the smell, and the urine, and all of that in your home, and I'm paying property tax, and I'm trying to maintain and keep my house clean, and so, I hope they really think about it, and I'm gonna try to make it to your meeting, because I'm one of those that really complained about, even the dogs that we have too.
I think that one of the things that people have to understand is right now, there's no ordinances on cats, except for trying to be vaccinated for rabies, okay? The situation here is, if we put together a good trap, neuter, release ordinance, then the city will have, I think, a little bit better ability to abate issues like that, okay? Although they have the ability to do it now, it's not being brought up to the foresight, because no one can have 40 cats, you can only have 4 cats with an animal legal. But most of these cats, people don't claim, and that's a problem.
What is the number to call? Because right now, cats, raccoons are in the city now, and they're just as bad. Who do you call for those items like that.
Well, if there's a cat issue, you should call Animal Services, and that number is 350-3360.
I need the raccoon, what about?
Now, we don't, I think
So,
people try to.
so in
record-
respect for time, how about you all follow up over there and I can get the last one? So lastly, we do have one member of our district advisory board here, Ms. DeWanda DeShazier, if she wanted to talk about the district advisory board, and then I have a few updates and announcements.
Hello, I'll make this real quick. We meet the first Monday of every month, and at the beginning of every meeting, there's an opportunity for the community to speak. And so if you have an issue, I encourage you all to come out and just know that the floor will be open and you will be heard. We talk about things, talking about new businesses coming into the community, talk about zone changes and whether the residents like it or don't like it. And so if there's something going on in your neighborhood, your community, and you really want to be heard, I encourage you again to come to those meetings, because we all can't make it down to City Hall at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays, but hopefully we can come to the DAB meetings at 6 p.m. The first Monday of every month. And again, I'm on the board, and I said I will never be on the board or committee if I'm not effective. And so if you have something that you want me to convey to our city council member, I'm always available. And I'll give you my number, 737-8120.
She won't respond.
Or send me a text. Lonnie calls all the time, so no, honestly, I take this position very seriously, and I love my community, and I love my city. So if there's anything that I can do, I'm there for it.
3 questions, 1, 2.
I was saving my question for Brandon. I've noticed, I attend Delrose United Methodist Church. And just to the south of there, there's a parking lot that belongs to Mid-Case there.
Providence.
Illegal dumping.
In that parking lot, there's been some dumping that continues to happen. And if you go by there today, you'll see it's very disturbing. Also, I was contacted and asked about would I remove some dumping that had happened in the alley off of between 13th and Minneapolis. 13th and Kansas between Minneapolis at the that little
Dollar General,
right
Mars,
there.
Mart.
And then when I visit that when I went down through that alley, I looked across a little farther to the east, behind the Family Dollar, there was more illegal dumping. My thing is, what is the city doing about that? And is there any, I keep hearing about grants. Is there any grants available to make sure that those things don't happen? Because those businesses are getting charged for certain illegal dumpings that are happening, and it looks bad.
Can I stop there and give you 2 updates? Those 2 cases he mentioned are currently in environmental court. The neighborhood inspector and commercial inspector have reached out to corporate offices, store managers, and giving them suggestions on what they can do. Until they, as a corporation or business, take those measures, they will continue to have illegal dumping. And I'll just give you a general example. You can, if you begin a business right now, you have to close in your trash service. They're grandfathered in at Providence Square to where they don't have to enclose their trash service. But if they chose to, that might cut down on it. They have an option of installing cameras. They have an option of bringing in security because they are a commercial business. And they have an option of having brighter lighting on the outside of their building. And those are all their options. So until they choose to take those options, the city will continue to write them up to clean up the property and the items that are illegally dumped around them. In that alleyway on 13th between Kansas and Minnesota, it is actually shared between Mennonite Housing French Quarters, so they have to clean up half of that alleyway too. So their management understands that half of that alley is theirs and the other half is Dollar General's. So again, go to those businesses, ask for their corporate numbers, talk to those managers, and express your concerns as a citizen of Wichita.
Well, I'm more concerned with the dumping they do on the streets.
Mr. Barnes?
Mr. Barnes and talk to me.
I caught the hand.
His hand is spinning.
But I will say, please keep questions specific to DAB. Anything like what Mr. Knox said, address that with me afterward, because that was not a DAB question.
And so, DAB is very important because you make recommendations to folks in here, and you recommend those to the area metropolitan area, Terrell, those guys in here. Some of those go to them, and theirs in turn goes to city council. So that chain of command and those recommendations are very important. So, but what I understand just from visiting with some of you DAB board representatives from the different ones, because that's all the districts coming in here, or those people that sit in here. A lot of the issues that come before you at your meetings in here, sometimes you're only notified about those issues 24 hours before those times, and you can't talk about them to each other. And you have a little time to go out and research what the issue is, but you put forth a vote on what you think it ought to come out of that. So a lot of times, without having proper time to research it in here or go out and collect information, you sometimes do us an injustice in here or misinformed in here. So how can we change that with DAB board, give you more information, more empowerment to do that?
We actually get our information at least 72 hours in advance. We rarely get anything the day of a, as a matter of fact, I've never gotten anything the day of a meeting. And so, yeah, time is short and it's limited, but we can take it upon ourselves to travel around. But for me, what's really important when those issues come before us, I like to hear what has the community said. If there's a new business going up in your community, I always ask, well, what did the community say? Did they send in any letters? Did they say yes? Did they say no? And so I really take into consider or prioritize how the community feels. And so I usually lean with them. And so if a business owner comes in and he says, I want to create something, I want a zone change, and we say, well, did the community respond? If they say no, then to me that means it's not a big issue to them, right? Because my understanding is that they always have the opportunity to weigh in on what's going on. And so that's very important to me. So again, I'm saying to the community, you got to get involved. You got to know what's going on in your neighborhood, in your community, and you have to, like we emphasize, you have to use your voice. And if you use your voice and let us know how you feel, I guarantee you we will side with the voices that we're hearing.
We have one more question over here.
I'm very grateful you video the district advisory meeting. It's another place that this district is leading all the rest of the districts. You know, we have 4 district meetings on that same night, and it's hard to get to them all, but there's valuable things. And I can finish up watching, you know, your dabs, or I can watch them later. I just wanted to say how beneficial I think that is.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Facebook, yes.
Lastly, part of what Mr. Barnes was saying, so zoning staff gets that information to Camila well in advance of a district advisory board meeting, and she gets that to the district advisory board normally on a Thursday or Friday. I've encouraged our district advisory board since I became a council member to always look at the addresses on those zoning changes, get out into the community and talk to folks, and that I've been aware of, the majority of the DAB actually does that. So they'll go out and check out the area, see what it looks like. If they can get input from citizens, they'll get it, and then we'll also see what citizens have said to MAPC or emails that I might get. So lastly, Ms. Jane Burns serves on our Wichita Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board. She couldn't make it, but she wanted to let you all know that she advocates for more crosswalks, longer crossing lights for pedestrians, more and better sidewalks, and improvements for walking. Walkability is a big thing they've been talking about, and they've been involved a lot with what I'm also about to talk about. So that was from Ms. Jane Burns. Today you heard from the majority of the folks that are appointed to represent District 1. Again, a lot of this came from Mr. Roseborough's feedback and saying that it's good for the community to know who represents them. So that has spurred a lot of this, and I think this was a great workshop today, just so you see who represents you and learn about the things they're talking about. So with that, you might have saw in the paper, I want to give you a little more background than what you saw in the paper, the Douglas Streetscape. So you saw that there might be, it brought down from 5 lanes to 3 lanes. So I've received some emails from around the city about that. And what wasn't in the paper is that we actually met for a whole year with property owners and business owners on Douglas.
Longer than that, Brandon.
Me, talking about me. I know Councilwoman Williams did, but for me, we met with them for a year, and the reason it became an issue was because there was a push to move the Douglas streetscape from the 2023 CIP into the 2020 CIP, so next year, which meant we would have had to rearrange a whole lot of projects going on in our community, and there wasn't a way to really do that that would be fair to some of the projects that have been waiting for 10 years or so to happen. So it stayed where it was at. This conversation wouldn't have really come up publicly until 2021 when we were getting ready to do all of that work. So because of that, it started, and I met personally with business owners and property owners, probably 5 different meetings last year, totaling an amount of 35 to 40 property owners on Douglas, as well as the Douglas Design District. And we continued to talk about this streetscape and came to a point where I thought everyone was in agreement. At that point, it was still basically 4 lanes. There was some medium work that was gonna go in that didn't work for the businesses, and we didn't want to cause any strains for those businesses. But we got to one issue that we couldn't find any resolution on, which was some of the bike lanes. And it became even more significant when we heard we might get 200 scooters dropped on us. And those are illegal on sidewalks, so where are they gonna go? So all of that kind of worked into where we came with this. So Nelson Nygaard, the company that you did read about, that was a last effort to bring people together and talk about, rather than just the Douglas Design District, what does Douglas look like from the river all the way up the hillside? We need to really think about that entire corridor instead of just one section. And so that's where that came from. During those meetings, those property owners and the Douglas Design District, so the people who actually live, work, and play in that area, began to meet and talk about the things that they had disagreed upon and found out they're okay with it. So that's when that information came to the media, again, in an effort to be transparent, to say, this is what we're talking about, what does the public think? So that's how we got to that point. That conversation, I think, is still ongoing a bit, and there's an opportunity, I believe it will come back to that at some point, for more community to give input. The thinking around it is those businesses in the area will benefit just like those in Delano. Slower traffic, more people walking and biking, as we've seen, and we're building more loft-style apartments downtown anyway, so we'll have more people downtown. But the businesses along Douglas will benefit from more folks walking to and from, especially those who have services, and even some of those destination businesses that sell hot rods and things like that. More people being there means more opportunities for them to have new customers. So that's one major thing. The other thing, I don't think we had talked about the stadium at the last dab, but a lot of that has gone forward. New renderings have come out. I did want to let people know that their voices are being heard, even though it didn't seem like it. A lot of the design work in the stadium has changed because of public comment. The reason a lot of that information came out, now it came out in stages, a lot of that was just delivered to the media so they would know, so we could get feedback. But as the lack of wow factor was addressed, designers were listening, they were doing different things. That whole ICT sign was added later because they wanted some wow factor. So the ICT sign has lights that change color all the time. There's new renderings that have been released that are more wow, so it's not some of what people complained about before. So again, voices are being heard. One of the main things we talked about was parking. What wasn't in that, because we just showed the baseball footprint, was there is more parking. It just wasn't finalized, and we didn't want to put out something that wasn't finalized yet. So there's even more focus on parking in the area. And then that private development that you all saw, the church and Mr. Laham was working on developing, they'll even have more parking. So those things are being heard, and again, make sure your voice is continually expressed so we can know some of the things you want to see. This is a one-time shot at that baseball stadium, so we want to make sure all your voices are being heard in that. Lastly, I think for us, we had this pawnbrokers possible ordinance that came up Tuesday. We deferred that just to make sure we get more information. There were some concerns given to us by the National Pawnbrokers Association around data that they take from you to keep. The reason behind it was, I think, a good one. So it would make sure that if someone stole your phone right now and went to try to sell it, All of that's uploaded digitally into a national database with this company so that in any state they'll know about it. So if somebody stole your phone and went to Texas today, tried to pawn it, it would ding in this system. They would get arrested because they had to give their driver's license, which ties them to you or to the person, and law enforcement can go find them at that address. Some of the things I was concerned about, I don't really like the fact that in 2021 they'll take fingerprints. I'm not really in favor of that, but it's a part of the ordinance as is. I expressed that, so we'll see if any of those changes are made when it comes back. But that was part of an issue, and not knowing what happens if someone who doesn't have ID and all that tries to go pawn something. So all of that will get addressed and come back to us. Those are probably the biggest things coming. I've had questions about the aquatics plan, what's taking so long. Some of that is the artist. So as you know, I always push more artistry, bringing in some cultural awareness and all of these things. So the artist that's been working with the architect has been changing a few things, and that slowed it down. Our goal is to try to get that done by next month because we want construction to happen. Again, we showed you in the budget, everything can be done by next summer. That's the goal. Right now, I've asked to look at where are we having the most hangups, because if we're okay on pools, let's get those pools built. If we're okay on splash pads, let's get those built, but let's get something going now so that the city can benefit from that. Lastly, there was some work around opportunity zones. So the city of Wichita will have a prospectus, which is basically a way to show all the opportunity available within these zones. Those zones were solidified by Governor Collier last year. We had to rush when this became law and make sure that we picked out various census tracts that had the most need, get those to HUD and get that to the governor for approval. Those cannot change, and that's a 10-year opportunity. So it was kind of brought up earlier, opportunity zones for District 1, we actually have 4. The first one closest to here is Innovation Campus, going south down 17th Street, taking in the Fairmount community. Actually goes a little east to, I believe, Estelle on 17th, not Estelle. I forgot the name of the street. Chautauqua on 17th Street. And then it heads south towards Redbud Trail, curves down towards 9th and Hillside, and goes all the way to 9th and Minneapolis on the south side. So Urban League is not in the opportunity zone. The other one is the McAdams Dunbar area. That entire area from 17th Street, actually from 19th Street all the way down to about Central is in the opportunity zone. Our downtown area of District 1 between Douglas and Kellogg, Washington, all the way down to the river is in the opportunity zone. And then Linwood Park going south into District 3 is an opportunity zone. Part of Schweider is in that opportunity zone as well. So we've got 4. The goal there is bringing in capital gains money from those who have it. Those who created this bill, Senators Scott and Booker, really wanted to see if they could take capital gains money in the amount of $1.5 to $2 trillion is not being invested in this country right now to put into lower income areas to help build them up. So that's what this is for. We've got a lot of projects in these areas, Dunbar Theater being one of them, but my focus has been looking at single-family housing and multifamily housing. We've got enough apartments, but some of those are run down, and I'd love to see those demolished and some newer ones built. But the biggest thing I think to change our communities is those single-family houses, giving folks an opportunity to own something and pass down generation to generation. So that's happening. That perspective should be out soon. Lastly, to address the elephant in the room, we saw that Westar Energy has donated $1 million in a community fund, as well as $250,000 for educational scholarship. That has been endowed, so every year, 10 individuals within those 3 zip codes, 67214, 67208, 67219, are available for $1,000. So young people in that area can apply for that. $1 million was donated with two different visions. So one is youth enhancement and development, looking at mentoring, youth programs, educational opportunities. The other half was community environment enhancement. Really, that, for me, was focused on one area, and that was where we saw those 105-foot poles. As I said in the media, it's not enough. I've said this to West Star, I will continue to say it's not enough, because there are people who have a pole 10, 15 feet from their front door. And if you haven't been by there, I encourage you to. There's a lot of people who push back on me and say it's $1 million, and I challenge everyone who says that to go down there and look at the poles. And actually, if you go into this parking lot, you can actually see some of those poles from here. So.
What's
that
the
million-
streets?
The streets of the actual transmission route is 9th and Mossman, or Hillside and Mossman. It goes east towards Green. From Green, it goes all the way to 11th Street. From 11th Street, it goes all the way down to Hydraulic. From Hydraulic, it goes all the way down to 17th Street. And from 17th, it goes all the way down to St. Francis. All of that is residential except for the part from McAdams West. So those are folks, 57, 105-foot steel poles in their neighborhood. And again, as we heard transmission line upgrades were coming, we did not hear they were 105-foot steel poles, and there was no real opportunity to push back at that point. So that happened. I am supporting Representative Finney's bill, HB 2317. That bill, LaWanda and others went up to speak about. It will be the best thing we have to stop this from happening ever again across the state. So what it would do is make the Kansas Corporation Commission a third-party oversight on this. It would require that any utility company that's upgrading notify the community. And it would require them to be transparent, so that many more eyes are looking at the fact that somebody's trying to put 105-foot tall steel poles in the neighborhood. Ultimately, I would love to see those poles taken down and wooden poles put back in, even if they're taller wooden poles. I have, because of some things that have happened on the council, I never say never anymore. So that is something I will continue to talk about. But that did happen, the $1 million came, and I know that not everybody's happy about it. And I've got a meeting with some homeowners after this to also express their frustration with this, because what you will hear, the full story of it is there was some compensation that was made. So those who have easements, and we have a community garden over there. So those who originally got anywhere from $400 to maybe $3,000 for this easement, West Star went back. So they did. They went back and paid folks, I think they spent, they say, almost $800,000. And they paid some people who had property, they bought them out. Some people who wanted to move out, they moved them out. But folks next door, they didn't get anything. The folks across the street, they didn't get anything. And even if they do, my concern has been for the folks who had the ability to get out, great. I'm glad you could get away from that. But for the folks who are stuck in mortgages, for the folks who've been there, might be in their 80s or 90s and cannot move, they're stuck. I heard from a homeowner who is 97 years old. She worked her entire life for that house, and she wanted to give it to her kids and grandkids, and there's a pole directly across the street. And her question is, what is my house worth now? What can I give back? Those are all problems to me. And my concern has been, even if they gave everybody $100,000 around there, the poles remain. This is the heart of our community, and what can we do going forward? So that is something that is an ongoing frustration. That conversation's not over. I do serve on the committee. There's 14 members on that. I served on the committee trying to get more. I did make a recommendation of $10, $15 million. As you can see, we got one. So that's where we are on that. Those are my updates. I saw a few hands, starting with Mr. Barfield.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions for you, Brandon. Number one, you said there are 14 members. The community was never advised as who the members were that were involved in this. Can you provide us with a list of those names?
Yeah.
In the 4 years? My second question to you is, what's the rationale? We don't know, you haven't even broken ground for this baseball stadium. We don't know the quality of the players, we don't know anything about it. So what's the rationale for now talking about season tickets sales?
So season ticket sales, that came from the team owner. That's something they do everywhere they start a new stadium, a new team, and that's just to kind of get a judge on what that demand's gonna be for the first season, get people out there. I know people have already reached out for that. As far as the players and all of that, normally that's kind of baseball management. Council wouldn't get into that, so I don't know. But Lou and Jay have been great about being open about that. I can ask them kind of where they're at. But if you wanna see, I think the best judge would be looking at this season, so they're still in New Orleans, they've got one more season there. Opening day should be, I think, in next week or so. So we can watch the New Orleans Baby Cakes this year and know that that whole team and the majority of it will come back to Wichita. So we'll be able to see kind of what they're doing there. As far as the committee members, I'll try to remember off top. I didn't write them down. So former Mayor Carl Brewer, former Councilwoman Lavonta Williams, myself, State Senator Elise Faustido, Bishop Wade Moore, Janet Wilson, Mike Kennard, Tracy Adams, Friska Barnes, Jonathan Long, Kyle Ellison, Dr. Charlotte Smith,
Thinking about the table.
yeah, I memorized my table. Lavonta Williams. Yeah, I did mention her earlier. That's what I can remember right now. If I catch another one in my head, I'll come back to you on that one.
Okay, I'm sorry, one more.
I'm already over time. I gotta get as much as I can.
How do the people get on some of these boards? What is the criteria?
The boards you heard from today? Honestly, apply for it. You can go to wichita.gov, click Citizen, Wichita Citizen Advisory Boards. There's an application on there. You just fill it out, check that you live in District 1, which ones you want to serve on. I get all of those applications. As vacancies come, I make appointments. So I try to tell as many people as possible, if you're interested in serving, go ahead and do it.
And if I may, it asks for your resume, so if you wanna join the bike walk board, put you're an avid walker, biker, love nature, make it fit for the board you want versus apply for 10. So if you apply for 10, that's just 10 sitting out there with your name. Personalize them for your skills and your love for the community, please.
I just want an update on John Hall Housing Development up on North 26th Street.
Rad.
Oh, so John's no longer the housing director. He took another job. Right now, Mr. Stanberry's kind of acting in that position, but Scott Rigby, assistant city manager, is kind of the point of contact for that. As far as RAD, it is moving. I know they had a meeting here, was that last month? They had a meeting here last month. I don't know when construction is gonna start. I think it's in the summer just because there's so many of those homes with kids in them and they don't wanna uproot the kids during school year. So I would assume
Can I join you?
Yeah, I would assume probably in June, just because of that.
We have information at that meeting coming up.
So there's not, I actually attended the meeting as an employee, and the single residential homes were told that they will be moved from one home to another in their same neighborhood. So while their home is being rehabbed, and then they'll come back into their neighborhood, and their goal is to get that rehab done before school starts. If not, they'll be in their same zip code area for their kid to go to school and not interrupt their school. And so they are starting with the single family homes first, which is in your neighborhood area, and then moving to the more seasoned senior centers later on.
And I also, recognizing that park there is a housing park, I'm looking into some funds to pay the kids in the area to clean up the trash over there. So we're looking into that. Trish?
I had asked a question before, and I sent it to city council people about burying those lines, because even a 102-foot wooden pole, I mean, great idea versus those metal suckers, but really, it takes it out of sight if you bury them, and I asked the question specifically of environability, reliability, and storm, fixings and all this stuff. If they're really looking at the total cost long-term of maintaining an above-ground line versus a buried line, I've asked for the math of that from Westar, and I've not gotten that answer. And I wonder if you, being on the committee, have gotten that answer, because,
I sent your email to them. I have not gotten an answer.
because don't you think if we put it underground, then all of a sudden it looks good?
So my thinking along with that as well is, if we do that, especially in that area, we're struggling to pay for streets. A lot of those streets need help. So if they dig a line down there, especially for a transmission line, they'll tear up part of the street. Well, that gives us an opportunity to rebuild streets in the area. And
Absolutely.
they talk about the cost, but our rates are increasing anyway, so. No, I have not gotten a straight answer. What I have is what you had, 6 times the cost of putting up the poles. And I think, you know, especially now that we've been staring at them for 8 months now.
But nobody sent me the math, you know, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just, you know, cause.
I mean, that's a good question.
Six
I don't have
times,
that
show me
answer.
the math, show me what reliability costs, show me, I mean, they're paying us flooded a lot of money to trim trees all through, I'm just saying, you know, show me the math.
I agree.
Let's
Again,
go.
this whole thing was the easy way. So you upgrade a transmission line through a neighborhood instead of taking the time to figure out an alternative route that won't impact people. That was harder. They didn't do the harder thing, they did the easy thing.
They did put those poles across the street from Wichita State too, on 17.
Wouldn't,
That's not-
wouldn't.
That's
No, there's
different.
another one.
It's different because,
Transmission.
it's different because it's not in somebody's front yard. So
Well, they
that-
knocked all those houses out.
But it's still not in somebody's front yard.
Yeah, I understand.
Ms. Lawrence?
Where does Gail Finney's bill stand right now?
It is not dead. We had let me not say it. We had an informational hearing and we should not have. We should have had a real hearing where we could vote on it. And, I think any types of emails to Chairman Cyward would be nice to hear that we are not happy about it. I will say that I will be saving some money. Whenever we have a real hearing, I'm happy to help pay for a bus and get residents who have these poles up to Topeka, because hearing from 7 of us was great. I think the committee hears the concern. I was able to hand out some really big pictures, 11 by 17. The way they formatted this hearing, the pictures that they had were this big, and I was able to hand out bigger pictures. So I think they kind of see it, but it's gonna take a lot of work on people to get a real hearing, not just information.
So probably next session.
That was what he said.
Yeah. Well, because they're on shutdown right now, and then when they come back, they're gonna have to approve all the bills that they agreed upon in the conference committees. And I wish Representative Ward was still here so he could kind of explain that.
So I'll tell you, Westar has a representative that sits in those committee meetings and is pushing back on
Of course.
this because of the cost to the ratepayers.
You mean they might lose a little bit of money for their shareholders and their CEOs is what that means. So y'all know.
Is there anything that can be done about the deadlines as far as those grants and things are concerned? Steve's kind of tight. I mean, they're gonna open it up, I think, in April the 15th through March or something. I don't think that's enough time for people to, you know, prepare or.
I expressed that. April 15th through,
March the.
no, it's April 15th through June 15th, I believe.
Okay.
You have to apply.
Yeah.
So what I did was requested any materials they have, digital, whatever, send to us. We'll get it in our newsletter. I have an email list I send out information on. I'll try to get it to as many churches as possible, and specifically the neighborhood groups. They will have we'll review those in July. Top scores will be notified, I think, in August. The money should be available in September. Due to the concerns expressed, they did say that if we see this year it didn't work out too well, we can change some of that for next year.
Yeah, because we want to make sure that we deplete that. We don't want to leave any of that to be used for anything else other than, you know, community upgrades.
So I'll tell you, my concerns, because I've said this too. So the funds, again, 500,000, community environment enhancement, youth development, and enrichment, split 500,000. So my focus and my goal, and I said this in the committee, and I'll tell you, any type of enhancement project should go nowhere but where those poles are, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And they originally were looking at District 1, and I said, as the member of District 1, I love that, but no, this is where the incident happened, this is where we need to focus. So we got that down to 3 zip codes, which I still disagree with. I know that we need help in those zip codes, but this money came from a tragedy, and that tragedy should be righted. So have said is any enhancement in that area will some little bit, not a whole lot, help negate the depreciation from those poles. So if we can do any facade improvements on homes, so those who are unable to because of age or ability to get their facades done, to get those yards done, to get any type of beautification efforts, it should happen there where the ugly poles are. Now, for the youth programs, and this is just speaking for me, I don't speak for all 14. Youth programs, I think the kids in that general area, some of them go to schools farther out, so some of them might go to Mueller. So if we do programs in that general area, which may encompass 3 zip codes, I didn't care too much about that because those kids go there. There's kids in that area that go all the way out to Wilbur. So just making sure that we still keep it in the general area, but any type of tangible, impactful thing you can see should only be around those poles, and that's the one consistent thing I've been saying, and I will keep saying it. But again, $1 million is not enough. I continue to say that if we wanted to make some real investments, negating the poles, even if we built all new houses in the whole area, we still got those ugly poles. And building all new houses is $50 to $75 million. So again, we need to, more money would be nice. Ultimately, taking those poles away would be better.
Are they saying that they will be willing to replace those poles with something different? Because they said no. Are you think that's still on the board that they're gonna do that?
So I tend to not care about no's, I guess.
Good, good, that's good.
You have a question, I'm sorry.
There's that one house, I mean, I just happened to go down River east of Hillside the other day, and I was shocked at that pole that says it green, I think it's green, and 11th Street. It's up this whole front corner of this whole front yard. I mean, who would wanna live in that? I mean, you could never sell it, who would wanna live in that?
So if you go down Mossman, pole is smaller, but there's 2 more houses like that. If you go down Hydraulic, outside of between 11th and 13th, you still houses across from it, but it's not in the front yard, but between 13th and 17th, there's a few. And again, this whole thing has been tough because I've walked that path several times. And homeowners come out and express, and we didn't have anything to do city-wise to stop it.
And it's supposed to help Wichita State?
It's supposed to help Wichita State and some other growing
So
areas.
then why didn't they go from the other direction, from 96 over?
They were,
Some other direction over. It implies that they can do what they want in the district.
I'm with you, I'm with you. They stopped their phase 2, which was supposed to go through the Fairmount neighborhood. And in that, they're looking at wood poles because of what they did over there.
There will be pushback in Fairmount for sure.
So they have committed, but I have also committed personally, whether they do it or not, that when that is anywhere close to starting, I'll go door knock the whole area and let you know when that meeting is. If they don't have one, I'll have one. But they said they would, and my hope is between you, me, and whoever else we can get out there, we get everybody to that meeting, we talk about it. And to be honest with you, when all of this happened, as Representative Finney went and began to gather people around this, I took the West Star executives and we walked alternative routes. And although I got a bunch of no's on that, we even looked at alternative routes in Fairmount. And I've continually said, and I'm gonna keep saying that Redbud Path is an alternative route. It goes around the neighborhood. And as a power company, that path is not lit right now. They could put lights on it and light the path and avoid disrupting the neighborhood. Have they wasted money in buying out houses? That's not our fault. You should have talked to us first. But that's an alternate route. So I've encouraged everybody, look at alternate routes, take a Google map of your neighborhood, and when that meeting happens, let's talk about it. Because they will say that there's a cost to it. There may be an increase in cost. Our rates are going up anyway. And to me, it's worth it because that area has changed. We have all the residential there. I think when they built transmission lines through there, it didn't look like that. So things change and they should change with it. Mr. Barnes.
And I appreciate what you did today, bringing in these representatives at their various positions and how they're representing us through the community. That gives us a face and a name, at least to go with that. And I appreciate Camille said she's gonna try and compile as much of those names and information and contact stuff and distribute that out. I'm assuming probably in your newsletter. Maybe. But the other part, I want to piggyback Barfield here. Those names that you gave out, those are verbal names, but you also list among those people who are on those committees, who speak for us. They're representing us in here and speaking on our behalf in here, but we don't know they are. Not at the beginning, and we're just finding out here at the end. And I don't know going forward, who else speaks for us in here, but for transparency, when you have committees and people who are speaking for you, it'd be great if those names were published if they own the committee, so if they don't reach out to us and contact us, maybe we need to be able to reach out to them and contact them. And vice versa, when, at the end of the thing, at the end of the day, I like to know if those ones who did represent me, what their rationale, what their communication is as well. So I want some transparency, and I hope you could publish those names along with that you do as well with that.
So in the beginning, and just being honest with everybody in here, if there's a private sector company doing something and they put people on a committee and they don't say that I can put that information out, I typically respect that. So outside of.
You didn't get to pick any of those?
No, the West Star team
So that was
chose
a-
their
that was a
own
West
committee
Star
is what we're
committee.
trying to say.
I
West
didn't
Star
do
chose that committee, not the city of Wichita. It's not an advisory board committee that's commissioned by the city of Wichita, like the people who spoke earlier. That's not what those 14 are, is what we're trying to
Well,
tell.
I want the 14, that did, out of that committee, they picked and done.
That's not something that Camila will post for the city of Wichita.
Could I-
Please contact West Star Energy is what
but
we're
again,
trying to
Brandon, would that
do.
help with you?
I hear what you're saying, but that is something that you need to say to West Star.
Well, you should have said that to us in the beginning, that West Star was
We
doing all
did,
that.
we did a year ago.
You said you could not say.
I said I couldn't say.
Is those 14 guys that did come into the community and give surveys to numbers of people? I was one of them, I received that. And they took down suggestions of things that possibly would, they wouldn't understand.
When I gave suggestions, several of them gave suggestions, we never heard anything about how our suggestions were received.
So
They
again,
given up those things that led to
let me go through, let me use another example for you all, because this one, we all know what happened with Commerce Bank, right? So Commerce Bank, they closed on 21st and Grove, is now Founders Grove. It's something that they donated to some nonprofits. When I was told about that, I was told not to say anything because their employees didn't know. So I could tell everybody, then their employees find out they're gonna lose their job in a couple months, which they didn't want to happen because they hadn't figured out what they were gonna do. They all did keep their jobs, they're just somewhere else. I could have done that, but then what happened would not have happened. That building would be empty right now because we didn't have anybody with $1 million that could go in and do something. So if I'm working with a private company that is willing to do something beneficial in our community and we don't know what it is, and they ask for some form of privacy, I respect it. Now, I will tell you, if you wanna talk to them, you can do that, and if they tell you, that's their prerogative. I choose not to break that trust just like I wouldn't with any of you. When it came to West Star, this was going on. I continued to publicly say this was an issue. As I was asked to be on this committee, I said I would. I wanted to know what was gonna happen. We talked about alternative routes while I was on this committee. We talked about removing poles while I was on this committee. I asked about letting the community know who was on the committee. At that time, they didn't wanna do that. They wanted to focus on the solution. So, if people asked me, like Mr. Barnes, I would continually say, reach out to Don Sherman. Reach out to West Star. Now, if West Star didn't want to tell you, that's West Star's prerogative. But my goal was to continue to fight for the community while I was there. Upon receiving notification that it was okay to say who was on the committee, I did. So at the breakfast we had in December at the center, I was asked about it. I reached back out and said, hey, I continue to get asked about this. I don't think it's a big deal to let people know. They said, yeah, you can tell people. So as people asked, I told them. So I say
You know,
things.
Brandon, if I can handpick the people that I want to go out and do my surveys and bring back that information, then I can sway it however I want it to be. I give them direction to do that. And that's kind of what we got.
Again, I encourage you to go say that to West Star.
Well, I encourage to say that to West Star. We reached out to West Star and get responses.
I
So then we
encourage
reach out
you
to
to continue.
you, you're our representative. So I expect.
Do
that
the same thing I'm doing. When I have an opportunity to go testify, I go testify. When I have an opportunity to make it an issue, I make it an issue. If they answer the phone, I talk to them. If they don't, I leave a message and I don't stop. So what I would encourage you to do, if this is something that's frustrating, is to continue to reach out. Don't take no for an answer. And if the phone doesn't get picked up, then you just keep trying. So we are now 45 minutes over. I'm gonna let Camila and Giselle give some updates, and then we can wrap up.
Sandman, the banana.
Hi, I'm Giselle Thomas. I'm the Youth Advocacy Coalition Coordinator for the City of Wichita through the Vista, AmeriCorps Vista program. I just have two announcements. One is the Way to Work program is available to the community. So any youth between 14 and 17, the flyers, the information and the applications are available here at the Atwater Center for your youth to come and pick one up to be involved in summer employment. And then also the workforce program as well is a good place to take your youth 14 through 21 to be able to get jobs with their job fairs available as well.
Real quickly, you have Medical Mission at Home next door at Mueller Elementary next weekend, April 13th, free health and dental care. A good example for dental, they will pull teeth on site, but if someone needs a filling, they will give them a voucher to go to an actual service facility to receive that filling or maybe potential crown. So I did clarify that, but if someone has a tooth that's in immediate need of being pulled, they will do that right on site. And so it's in English and Spanish. Please take them back to your neighborhood. And this is also for even working. There's a lot of working people who have underemployed, so please share this information. They will not turn away anyone. If you get there at 3 and check in, you will be seen. Please know that. So 9:30 to 3, please share that. We talked about things for youth to do in the community. Here at Lynette Woodard, there's summer camp activities in 3 different parks. Registration begins April 22nd for kids who need to attend summer camp in the summer. And lastly, the District 1 grant, we still have, we've used half the funds that were allocated, $124,000 for former Councilmember Lavonta Williams from the sale of the Hyatt. We have allocated half of those funds back to District 1. And so please encourage people to apply if they need help with sidewalk repair, tree trimming, tree removal, or deed issues. And I'm excited to say we had 8 applications for deed issues. So when grandmother passed away or current brother is living and they need to get that name changed now, people are taking care of their family-owned property. So those applications are coming in. So very excited for that. With that being said, this concludes our meeting. We can talk 10 minutes and we have to close this building.